Hey, it's Kina Knisley with Team K Squared of Keller Williams, and I'm with Forrest Knott today from EMortage Capital. Forrest, you have a great product, 0% down.
Yep.
So I don't know anything about this, so we're going to learn together. So tell us about how can we buy a house with 0% down, and I don't have to be a VA buyer?
Right, yeah. And what's so neat about this is that, a couple of stats just recently came out, a couple of articles. National Association of Realtors said that the number one obstacle for potential home buyers is saving for a down payment. And then Forbes backed that up and said 68% of home buyers' biggest obstacle is saving for a down payment. And so
especially here in Oahu.
Yeah. And so, yes, this is essentially a 0% down program. And how it's working is well, let me just actually back up. I have, other agents I've worked with that have had what became buyers that were looking to rent a home. And they were out looking for rentals. And they had a quick discussion about it and said, if you're going to rent something, you're going to need your first month and your deposit, and it's going to be tough to get out of that renting a 2-bedroom place for less than $4,000 or $5,000 out of pocket to move in. And we've got buyers or renters turned into buyers that are doing this for $1,000 to $1,500 out of pocket.
Wow.
So a fraction of what it costs just to rent a home. And what we're doing is, this is an FHA loan, just like any other. There has historically been some stigma behind FHA loans, but I'm here to tell you that they not only close just as easily and as well and as fast as a conventional loan, but there's really no reason to think that FHA buyer is going to have any harder time.
Yeah, I've closed several FHA and have never had an issue.
And the thing with FHA is you need a 3.5% minimum down payment. And what we're doing here is the lender is providing a 3.5% grant, and it's covering that down payment. How it's different than a lot of these other down payment assistance programs is most down payment assistance programs have one of two things: either a silent second that stays on title, and that'll stay on title for 5 or 7 or 10 years. The other, where no interest, no payment. Doesn't sound that bad. But the other option is there will be a second mortgage for that 3.5% down. It's a very small mortgage, and it's typically going to be 2% over whatever your first mortgage rate is. So you might be in the 8, 9, 10% range. Not a big payment. Where those are problematic is that right now we're just starting to come off this really high interest rate environment. We know the feds have signaled that they're expecting their first rate cut next month in September. We're expecting 8 rate cuts between September and July of 2025. So rates are going to start, coming down, rapidly in the coming months, and that's pretty well accepted at this point. The problem with those other down payment assistance programs that I mentioned is you're going to want to utilize a part of the FHA loan called the FHA Streamline, where you can refinance after you've made 6 payments, as long as we can lower your rate by 0.5%. Anyone who gets an FHA loan today will probably have an opportunity to lower that rate by 0.5% twice a year for the next 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And by doing so, they're going to drop their payment dramatically. The problem is with the other down payment assistance programs, if you go to refinance, you have that second, whether it's a silent second on title or an actual second that you're making payments on. And if you refinance, you're going to have to pay that money back. So that wasn't free money. You don't get to keep it. It's owed back. Again, if you paid off in the first 5, 7, 10 years. So those are problematic because ultimately it's going to prevent you from refinancing. You're going to be stuck in that loan with that higher interest rate. The one that I'm talking about, it's forgiven on day 1. You could literally refinance after your 6th payment, and I would be shocked if we couldn't lower the rate by more than 0.5% after 6 payments. So it's and you know, very easy to qualify for. You know, FHA loans are typically, you know, more lenient on credit and income than conventional.
So what does a person need? If somebody wants to come and do this loan, what do they need to come to you with?
So they're going to need 2 years of employment, preferably in the same industry. And if they've been self-employed, 2 years, you know, self-employment in the same industry, and, you know, qualifying income for the payment on the home that they're buying, of course. 620 credit score, and further into the credit, we're just going to want to see nothing majorly derogatory within the last 2 years, such as collections or charge-offs. You know, no bankruptcy in the last 2 years, no foreclosure in the last 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And I just mentioned foreclosure, so that would indicate that you'd already owned a home, and that's one thing I want to mention is this program is not just for first-time home buyers.
Wow, so it's anybody.
Anybody can do this. You can have a full portfolio of properties as long as you intend to move into this property and use it as your primary residence.
And how long does it have to be your primary?
12 months.
Oh,
so that's a strategy a lot of my investors are doing, where they will just buy a property, live in it for 12 months as they're doing the renovations, and then you know they can flip it and move on to the next. Another neat thing about this is most down payment assistance programs are really restrictive. I've never been an advocate because there's typically just a lot of red tape, a lot of brain damage, and they usually don't close. This one, and most of that is because you have these you know, income restrictions where you have to make less than 80% of the area median income. That coupled with high prices, high interest rates, it just doesn't pencil out. This program does not have any income restrictions. So not only is it not only for first-time home buyers, anyone can use it, and you can have any amount of income.
Wow.
So it's really, there's nobody excluded from using this program.
So it's a 620 credit score, 2 years of work history, and it's open to anybody. Is there a cap on the how much?
There is, and it's capped because of here in Honolulu County, our FHA loan limit is $779,700, which when you take the 3.5% on top of that, which is going to be the down payment, which is gifted to you, that brings you in just a few $100s, I think, under $808,000.
So there are still, that's kind of cute, 808.
Yeah.
So did you do that on purpose?
Well, but there's a neat thing there. That doesn't mean that you can only buy an $808,000 home. So if you do buy an $808,000 home, you're essentially getting a $28,000 gift. Just like mom and dad gave you $28,000, it's the same difference. You can go buy an $850,000 home and put down the $42,000 different and still save the $28,000.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat with this.
And there are. I mean, there's some good townhomes in Eva and places in Eva that you can still get under $808,000.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky and find stuff, you know, in town that's under the $808,000.
Plenty of condos in Mililani, I believe.
Yeah. So now what about the people that are wanting to wait until the interest rates come down? What are we telling those people?
Well, the biggest problem with this strategy is stats tell us that for every 1% that interest rates come down, 5 million more qualified buyers come into the market. Now that's of course a nationwide stat, but that still impacts us, you know, dearly here in Hawaii. Now keep in mind, the feds are expecting 8 rate cuts between September and July, which is essentially, you know, at a minimum of 0.25% each cut, we're looking at a 2% drop. If we see a 2% drop,
that's 10 million more people.
That's 10 million more buyers.
That's way more than the Forbes article I read.
So the problem with that is, unlike how Kina, when you helped me buy my home, I was able to get a 3%, you know, $27,000 seller credit to cover the closing costs, and that was at asking price. So it's really below the seller's netted below asking price. You can still do that now, but once rates drop,
seller's going to be less likely to give you credits.
Less likely to give you credits, and your only way to combat that is to And if you don't want to come out of pocket for your closing cost, you can always offer more as asking or offer price, and then ask for your seller credit to cover your closing cost. But then you're going to get into a point where you're going to end up going so high because you're probably having to offer over asking just to win you have your offer win in the first place. You're going to get to a point where the home probably won't appraise, and then you essentially kill the deal for yourself. So
yeah, so we've got to watch that. And then we do have the rolling out of needing to roll the buyer agent commission in.
It's going to add more stress to that equation,
which is going to then also use up some of your percentages that you can legally get as a credit.
So everybody has been saying for the last couple of years, marry the house, date the rate, and a lot of people have objected to that and said, you know, they don't like that because, you know, there's no guarantees, and there is no guarantee at this point.
There's not. But, we don't have a crystal ball.
We have never seen the feds in the last 3 years. We haven't seen the feds signal that we're going to have rate cuts, you know, almost for certain in September, and as aggressive as they've mapped out for the coming year than we have in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're waving that flag.
It really is an opportunity to, you know, marry the home, get in before the prices shoot up, because when rates drop, you know, you might get a 1 or 2% lower rate, but you might pay $50,000 more for the house, and you can't go back and change that. The refinance won't change your purchase price.
So I also read an article today that said 40% of buyers are waiting till after the election to shop for a home. So why is that not? I mean, guys, the president and the feds don't talk, right?
Yeah, you know.
I mean, is that something you would recommend, or should they wait till after we have a new president?
I would not, because there's no telling. I remember back in 2016 when Trump won, everyone said if Hillary won, if Trump won, that the rates were going to crash, and they shot up overnight, shot up dramatically.
We're not judging presidents, we're just talking about rates.
Yeah, and then they started easing up in January, February, March of the following year, but it went against what expectations were. So I wouldn't put any stock in that to say if one president elect wins over the other, it's going to have whatever impact on rates.
I don't think it's going to impact your rates at all. So
I mean, it might, but there's just it's a crapshoot. There's no telling what it's really going to do. So. But if what I'm fearful of, and why I told you earlier in the year when we bought my home, was I was adamant about buying a home before rates drop. And my fear is if rates do drop dramatically right after the election, good luck in
it's going to be crazy
letting your offer get won, because you're probably going to be back to, now you kind of have your pick of properties around this island.
What did we say? There was over 2,600 active listings today. 665 sold in July. So there's quite a few listings out there to choose from, more inventory than we've seen.
Sellers are anxious for offers.
Yes.
Wait till rates drop, and you're going to see crowds back at the open houses, and you're going to see multiple offers on the day one these properties are listed, and you're going to end up paying so much more for the home, which is going to impact your down payment, your closing costs, which is upfront cost out of pocket, as opposed to a negligible difference in monthly payment, which you could refinance to a lower payment later anyways.
It really is. So a good idea, maybe talk to Forrest, get a little more insight, more information on this zero down, because I think that is incredible.
Yeah, you'd be shocked how many people who thought they would never be able to buy a home have bought a home, who were ready to sign a lease, and within 30 days they were, signing loan docs for their new home.
Wow. So, all right. So if you have any other questions, just let us know. You can put them in the comments. We will get those answered for you. This has been Kina Knisley and Forrest Knott. Please subscribe to the channel for more great information, and we can't wait to work with you.